Hello, my name is Kevin Stillman. I am with the State University of New York System Administration in Albany, New York. I've been invited here to talk to the Genesee Community College Cyber Fair about cybersecurity awareness. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the programs we offer to the university system here in Albany, to SUNY campuses in relation to cybersecurity. And I'll also talk a little bit about how to break into the cybersecurity industry. So first off, my title is the Director of Network and Cybersecurity Services for the system. So basically what I do is I'm responsible for networking infrastructure that is used by university-wide programs that touch many campuses. I'm also responsible for something called the SUNY SOC, or the Security Operations Center, that handles cybersecurity services for the university system. The SOC has a mission. It's to provide cybersecurity services to SUNY-wide and to do in a way that make services consistent, cost-effective, preemptive, and equally secure. What that really means is that we try to make sure that every campus, regardless of whether you're a community college or whether you're a university center or whether you're a four-year college, has roughly equal access to cybersecurity services. In the end, the mission is to make sure that student and faculty and staff data is safe. So the SOC right now is a opt-in program for SUNY campuses. There are 47 campuses that participate out of the 64 SUNY campuses that are illustrated in this picture right here. So just a little detail about how SUNY is trying to be serious about cybersecurity as a university system. So next I'm going to talk about some cybersecurity habits, and I'm going to start by talking about the worst cybersecurity habits. And I'm going to go through these. I came up with 5. These are the worst 5 cybersecurity habits. And first is, I'll go into them in a little more detail, but to review here first, it's thinking you're not important enough to be a target, not using multi-factor authentication. We'll talk about what that is. Using poor password hygiene, making too much information about yourself available to the public online, and trusting the minimum security settings on your devices. So really big is, I'm not important enough to be a target of an attack. And that is not true. No matter who you are, no matter how broke you are, how rich you are a target of an attack, especially if you are an easy target. So it could be going after your credit, no matter how much your credit is. It could be someone you know. Maybe they're not after you, but they're after someone that is connected to you in some way, be it a parent, be it a professor, be it a employer. So you could be the means to that other individual or that data that someone is after, someone you work for. So it's something you always need to be on guard for, that you're at risk. You're putting data online all the time with social media, with filling out forms, giving it to either someone you're going to work for or something you're signing up for. So you should always be very, very careful. Question everything when you are providing information about yourself. Multi-factor authentication. This is probably the single most important thing that you could do to help protect yourself. And what multi-factor authentication is using 2 factors, or more than one really, to access something. And you're probably seeing this now, where if you're accessing a site online and you need to get a PIN texted to you by whoever you're logging into, that's multi-factor. And you should be using that on any platform that gives you the ability to use it. So social media platforms all tend to have that now, and it's something you should definitely take advantage of. You don't want your password being known. This will prevent someone who happens to know your password through a breach that is out of your control from logging into your account. If that second factor isn't given to what they're logging into, and if that goes to your cell phone or some app you have, then they won't be able to get access to it. So it will stop them dead in their tracks. Single the most important. Many high-profile breaches could have been prevented simply by using multi-factor authentication. So I can't stress enough how critical it is to do this as much as you can in your personal life. Password hygiene is a pretty straightforward thing. You need to have more complicated passwords than a word and some numbers. Really, the word password should be changed. It should really be passphrase. There should not be passwords. So you should be thinking of more complicated strings of text. And you should change them relatively routinely. So there's a meme that's been around for quite a long time. This is pretty old now, but it's an example of entropy. So here is what for several years we had been using as passwords. We're being tricky, and we're changing a zero to, or I'm sorry, an O to a zero, and we're using different kind of symbols. But these are all things that computers can easily compensate for when guessing passwords. So you see this troubadour at symbol or ampersand 3 has about 28 bits of entropy, and it's hard for you to remember because you don't remember if you used an O or you used a 0 for that O in the word. So it is hard for you to remember. Alternatively, if you come up with a phrase like correct horse battery staple, 4 random words, meaningless, it's difficult to guess. Don't use correct horse battery staple, but it has 44 bits of entropy. So if you find a way to memorize some sort of phrase, then of course you can remember it. It's easier to remember for you, and it has more difficulty for a computer to guess. So through 20 years of effort, we've successfully trained everyone to use passwords that are hard for humans to remember, but easy for computers to guess. What I personally do is I tend to use obscure song lyrics and some other word. So it would be very difficult to guess. So making too much information available about yourself online or anywhere for that matter. So Google can be a scary place if you have never done it, and most people I'm sure have. But Google yourself, there's way too much information there about you. Anyone who wants to learn where you live, where you have lived, who you're related to, what your phone numbers have been, what your addresses have been, that's a scary amount of information to have about you, and it's all readily available because we've been putting it online and making it out there. So you should really be careful about what you put out there. Your data is for sale, you know that. Basically by taking advantage of social media and these platforms that are available for free to you, you are the one that is for sale. It's your data. It's the ability to direct advertise to you through these platforms is what is for sale. So know that, act accordingly. Take advantage of all the security settings that are available in social media. All the security settings, the ability to limit who can see information about you. Do not keep a public profile. You don't need to have pictures of yourself available for anyone to see unless it's in your circle of friends. Of course, do not put more than necessary, and be careful about what you put into forums in social media or anywhere on the internet. There's these forums that are available. Don't put information into there. One other thing are these surveys that come out. Do not answer those surveys that give whoever is collecting this information the data to go and answer those interesting questions about you, like where your first job was, or what your favorite color is, or your mother's maiden name. Those are all questions that are usually used by banks or some other entities to try to verify who you are. Don't give those things out to people. Also, trusting the minimum security settings on your devices. So this is pretty straightforward. You have a router at home, you've got a smartphone, you've got any other kind of device. You use the most high security setting as you can. Obviously, security is inconvenient. Typing something into a device to get access to it is convenient, but getting hacked sucks. It's far worse than the inconvenience of having to type in a passcode or go through multi-factor authentication. Change the default accounts on all your devices. If you have a Linksys router or any kind of Belkin router at home, you want to change that admin password to something that no one else will know. And it is very easy for someone to just casually walk by, get access to a Wi-Fi network, go for that router because it always has the same IP address. And if you didn't change that password, they own your router, and that's not what you want. And of course, use longer passcodes, passphrases, biometric authentication if you're able to. Some other good habits: don't use public Wi-Fi if possible, and never for anything that is secure, banking or something to that effect. Public Wi-Fi is inherently secure. There could be somebody out there that is posing as that Wi-Fi network that is openly available, and you may happen to connect to that, and then they're circumventing the security that you have. They're able to see everything that you transmit. It's just not advisable when you're doing secure things. If you're doing something less secure, it depends on what your needs are. Using VPN products. So VPNs are pretty ubiquitous nowadays. You can have them on your cell phone, on your smartphone. There's plenty of them out there. If you're able to use a VPN, it will add another layer of security. Of course, what a VPN does is creates a secure connection from your device back to a head end somewhere in the cloud, somewhere on the internet, so that your communication is secure going to that. That way, anyone in between cannot access that communication. And finally, always use a healthy dose of paranoia about any communication. You should question an email. You could question a text. Usually, if it seems a little off, it probably is a little off. And if there's a link in it, you ought not click it. You go back to the person who sent it. So this is pretty remedial cybersecurity training, but just always have a healthy paranoia about any communication. And that also goes for, of course, nowadays, news, fake news, anything that you see online. Check your sources. Don't always believe everything you see or hear online. So now we've talked about some cybersecurity, better habits. We can also talk about a career in cybersecurity. So I started in IT about 23 years ago. I didn't go into cybersecurity. Cybersecurity kind of existed back then, but it has certainly come a long way since. I actually got into networking initially. But it was, it fell into cybersecurity pretty easily, because if you're into networking, you tend to touch a lot of an IT environment. So I had a lot of good background there that easily fed into learning more about what cybersecurity is. But the biggest advice that I can give to you is to get your nerd on. It will serve you well. And what I mean by that is get into Linux, get into the operating systems of the devices you use. Get as far in as you feel comfortable. But the biggie, I would say, we interview a lot of people wanting to come into cybersecurity, and the first question we ask is, how's your Linux? So teach yourself Linux, it will serve you well. Teach yourself networking, it will serve you well. So that leads to the other bullet here: become familiar with IT infrastructure operations and trends. So a big thing about cybersecurity is understanding how businesses work, how businesses use IT. How hybrid cloud works, how authentication works with business systems. All those kinds of things are aspects that feed into cybersecurity for a business. If you're going into the field, you should understand the big picture. So It's not saying understand every aspect of all of these things, but knowing how they stitch together is vitally important, and that will also serve you well. Trends, I say it towards the end, but it's also this be important, or it's important to keep track of the trends. Get into the industry, read the blogs, read the Twitter feeds, read all the articles that are coming out. Get into it. And also, I say here, understand how organizations work, what their structure is. And when I say this, I mean business organizations. Understand the structure of an HR department. Understand the structure of the different purchasing, the accounts payable, accounts receivable, how all these things stitch together, what the CFO is, what the CIO is, what the CEO is, what the COO is. These things are all important because they're terms that are used quite a bit. You need to understand who's got the power to do what in an organization. So these things play into it. And this is even before getting into the hacking and getting into all the fun stuff of being in cybersecurity. So that's the best advice I can give you. I hope this was useful to you. I hope you have a great cybersecurity fair at Genesee Community College. If you want to reach out to me for any questions, you can get a hold of me at kevin.stillman@suny.edu. I'm happy to answer them. Take care.